So you want to produce music full-time? Part 2.
What's the moment I knew I could pursue music full-time? The moment that I started pursuing music full-time was not the moment that I should have been doing it, but it's the moment that I took to like quit everything else and start focus on this, which was music at the time. This was back in like 2020 when the pandemic first became a thing. Back then I was just like delivering pizza and living at home. And like the way that it was, it's like if someone at the pizza place got sick with COVID, like everybody gets sick. And that means I would go home and bring that to my family. And I couldn't do that because I lived with my grandma who was high risk for getting COVID. So I just couldn't take any risk at all. And that's when I quit my job. I obviously wasn't a full-time producer at the time, but I kind of took that as an opportunity to kind of make almost like a last-ditch attempt at becoming a full-time producer. Like I'd been pursuing it for so long at that point, already about 3-4 years at that point, that I was like actively pursuing, like I want to be a music producer full-time. I want to make beats, that's all I want to do. And I'd already been like, I already had multiple attempts at like daily posting type beats and all kinds of stuff. So like I already been putting the effort in to do it, but it was, what? You can't be interviewed, this is mean. But yeah, pretty much when I quit my job then, that's when I told myself that like I'm gonna be posting a beat every single day for at least the next year straight. And something's gotta happen if I do that. Like if I go all in, like this is what I'm gonna do. And luckily for me, it worked out.
Well, if we go, I guess, deeper on this, I feel like I have like 2 voices in my head. And for most of my life, my other voice was winning. So basically the 2 voices are, there's one version of me that's like, you can do anything. You can just fucking do it, just go for it. And there's the other version that was much louder for most of my life. Literally just someone that was just afraid of everything, like afraid of their own shadow, afraid of failure, afraid of what people would think of them. So I think it took me a long time to kind of get over that. But the moment I knew I could kind of do this, and this was like years in the making because I had already tried to sell beats online, but gave up on that because it just wasn't what I wanted to do. And then I finally kind of built up the courage to create a channel where I taught people, I guess, how to make beats and did music production related content. For months and months, I was getting like 60 views on a video after like a couple of weeks. But then I started to have a little bit more success, and I started to sell kits, and those started to do all right, but I still wasn't getting a ton of views. But then I think it was in the summer, like 2 years ago or so, I had a few videos that started to do like pretty well for me, and I'd been saving up literally since I started my YouTube channel because I wanted to just quit my job and really just go for it. And so even though I was probably only making like 20% of the money or whatever to actually cover all of my bills, I felt like if I just had all day to kind of focus on this, that I would be successful. And then after a couple months, I was able to break even, and then eventually just stop dipping into my savings. And so the exact moment I would say was when I made the YouTube channel and I made my first video, because that took like years and years of me being able to actually go and do that. So yeah.
Funny enough, it wasn't when I had a song on a #1 album that led me to believe I was making music full-time, because I still had jobs. I still had 3 jobs at that point. It was a sign for me to keep going. It was affirming, but it wasn't the definitive moment when I knew I could, quit every other source of income and focus solely on music for my income. I remember when I finished my master's degree, at this point I had had a couple placements. It just wasn't paying my bills, probably because I was working these other jobs and finishing school up. So I wasn't, 100% focused on music, even though I think in my head I thought I was doing a lot, and I was making a lot of beats and educating myself and networking and traveling. So when I realized that I could make music full time, it was when I quit all my jobs. I mean, one of them, actually 2 of them expired. So I was kind of forced to quit those. And then the 3rd job that I quit, I was kind of forced to quit that too, all around the same time. I wasn't fired at any of these jobs. It was just, I don't know, it was like the universe giving me a sign. So
honestly, I think it was the same moment when I wanted to pursue music full-time. It's just the nature of who I am. As I want it, and I know that some other people do it, that's the moment when I realized I can do it too. I knew it for sure. If someone can do it, and if I want to do it, and if I already sold my first beat and someone really paid me, so yeah, what else did I need to prove myself that I can make it? I collected like 40,000 emails of artists and I spammed my beats. I DM'd them on Twitter. It is ridiculous amount of artists I tried to sell my beats to. It's really insane. I was grinding hard, man. I do not recommend to do this now. There are too many people doing this, spamming beats, not really working.
Alright, so what is the biggest obstacle in my music career and how have I overcome it? Now, I would maybe say when I first quit my job trying to figure out ways to make money, but honestly that seems like so distant that it seemed like the hardest thing yet. I feel like I'm in the most challenging point right now as I'm trying to kind of shift, I guess, I don't know how it's how people view me or whatever, as I'm trying to, go more of the artist routes, while at the same time trying to, maintain my audience and make sure they're getting content that they want. So I would say I'm probably in it right now, the most challenging point, as I'm taking a lot of risks, or I'm about to be taking a lot of risks that could, kind of just end it all for me.
I wouldn't say that as like one specific obstacle or moment, but a big thing that I've been dealing with like my whole time that I've been full time is burnout. And especially since I was like posting type beats, like I was posting type beats every day. And once I found what worked for my channel, like I was only doing that. So like once I found like Solfego beats like started blowing my channel up, I was only sticking with like the Solfego beats, and any other like similar underground SoundCloud type of sounds and artists and shit like that. And I was basically making only those types of beats, and that seriously burned me out a lot of times. Like there is like a lot of times where I just had to push through the burnout and just keep working and keep posting, because like at that point I was already full time, obviously, but I was already making money, and that's how I was making all my income, was doing that. So I had to force myself to deal with the burnout, come out the other side of it and keep going, which just led to another burnout cycle that hit even harder and made it even more difficult to bounce back from. So yeah, that's kind of been like the biggest obstacle in my career, because every time I have bad burnout, like it's depressing, like I don't make music. I don't want to make music. I don't even want to like listen to music or anything like that. Like, yeah, definitely like dealing with my own mental health struggles as a producer has been my biggest roadblock so far.
I think I wasn't really get paid like at all. I grinded really hard, but the amount of money I could get from it was really, really small. And it was hard. I thought maybe it's not that efficient to try to make beats and try to sell them. Maybe I can continue to make beats as a hobby and try to pursue a different career and spend my time more efficiently. I really care about that the time I spend on something is really worth it.
One of the more difficult obstacles for me wasn't really an obstacle, it was more of a moment where I just felt completely disenchanted with everything. It was when I had a single on a major, and it was my first single, and I found out that the guy that got it placed had signed a producer declaration already and had claimed all credit for all of the intellectual property of my beat. And so, from the outside looking in, it was like, oh, you got this record, but my name wasn't attached to it in any way. I had to go online and do what I do to stake my claim, and I burned a bridge with that guy because he was upset that I saw through what he was doing. And he's to this day incredibly powerful figure in the music business, and I think going against him, at least at the time, hurt some of my other relationships. And so that was just a low point for me, because I didn't have other placements that year, so a lot was riding on that one deal. And then just to have experience the the anguish of being hopeful and going up this emotional roller coaster to the top, only to be thrown off. That was a lot to deal with. So I don't know how I managed to overcome. I guess I was angry, and I had people around me who encouraged me not to quit, but just kind of transmute that anger into work ethic. And, you know, they helped me put into perspective the fact that I can get past this and just continue creating more music. And that's what I did. So, you know, at that point, it was like, it's like having a really bad day at work. You know, are you going to quit and potentially face financial ruin? Because at that point, music was paying all my bills and I didn't have any other sources of income. Or are you just going to tough it out for your own self-preservation? You know what I mean? So I chose survival at that point. Why am I so monotone? Why do I always look like I hate my life in my videos? I'm gonna skip over those and go to the next one. So what is my biggest fear with the career I have going? Yeah, maybe that the beat market will just entirely dry up. Maybe all those commenters saying AI is gonna replace producers, maybe they're right. Maybe we all get replaced and you just push a button and someone can make a beat as good as me or better than me, you know, as good as Riley, as good as ATL Jacob, as good as Alchemist, as good as, you know, whatever top producers out there.
I wouldn't necessarily say I have like a specific fear, like doing music full time, aside from like the typical stuff that any small business owner or entrepreneur kind of deals with when they start a business. You know, like what if business dries up? What if like it just all falls apart? Like it's always on the verge of falling apart. Like, oh, this is the last month I'm doing it. I'm gonna have to get a real job next time. Like, I think that's the most common thing I deal with. What do I do to ensure that it doesn't happen? You know, there's not a lot that I can do to make sure the sales keep coming in, like that I have direct control over in the moment, you know? So what I've been focusing on with the last couple years, especially as I step back from type beats and started doing other things, is I've started focusing on growing my own personal brand and, you know, just developing my overall assets as a producer. That's not, I post my beats every day and that's how I make money, if that makes sense. I'm trying to grow my personal brand by making video content, you know, just kind of growing my name as a producer in that way, so that like if I stop posting beats and doing shit like that, then my name carries more weight with it, that I still have opportunities coming my way and I can still do things that generate money so I can live.
I would say my biggest fear, being afraid that I won't do everything that I could, or that I'm not doing enough to make my dreams a reality. I would say that's my biggest fear. Not so much that if I do all the right things and it just doesn't work out for me, I could live with that, but I couldn't live with knowing that I didn't do everything that I could and knew I should to, you know, achieve my goals or whatever. In terms of any steps to make sure that doesn't happen, honestly, I'm just trying to get out of my comfort zone as much as possible.
What was the biggest sacrifice you had to make to pursue your career? What made you ultimately decide to make this sacrifice? I've honestly sacrificed a lot to make it happen. Yeah, ever since I started producing, all my free time went into making music, and it kind of started to engulf everything else from there, you know? Like I started to not hang out with friends and not do social things, anything besides hang out with my girlfriend. Like I literally went from just a normal person, like going to school, hanging out with my friends, going out on the weekend, shit like that, to becoming a producer and becoming obsessed. And that was the only thing I did, you know? So that itself is a sacrifice. I sacrificed social life and shit like that. You know, just before I was even full-time with it, I was already making sacrifices like in my social life, like just dedicating all my free time to just making music because I was obsessed with it, for one, and two, I wanted to get good enough to actually be full-time. So like, you know, you gotta put your 10,000 hours in, you know, you gotta put in a lot of effort up front to just get to the skill level to where you can even try to make this shit a reality, you know? And then definitely once I quit my job and was doing music full-time, like I definitely started sacrificing a lot more then. My own mental and physical health, my relationships, like any semblance of a social life I had before, just no. Absolutely not.
Well, I'm in my late 30s. My 30s are about to end, and I have no kids, no wife, very few hobbies, very little time to myself, and yeah, just other people go out and have fun, and I don't really do that. But I love what I'm doing, so it's like I've rewired my brain to view the music business and the ups and downs of the music business as equally, if not more fun and fulfilling than a social life, or going out to bars or hang gliding. Whatever normal people do normal people hang glide? I don't know, but I don't. So I just assume that anything I don't do, regular people do. And so, yeah, the sacrifice for me was just drowning in work. I just can't really do anything else at this point. And I don't think people understand that. I think on the one hand, any entrepreneur can relate to just drowning in work because, we don't clock out. But on the other hand, it's the music business, so I feel like that adds an extra layer. We're all of us who choose to go into business for ourselves are drowning, but some pools are deeper than others, and I feel like the music business is a deeper pool just because of the nature of that market. These aren't tangible goods. It's not like we're selling, gasoline. We're not selling commodities, that type of thing. It's very abstract. It's art. And so that adds a layer of additional challenges. That's in my opinion.
I'll say the biggest sacrifice I've had to make is really just time, like time with friends, time with my girl, time with my family, etc. Just because there's so much that I'm doing on my own that I know if I don't do it, then things just aren't going to happen. I know I'm on a mission right now is what I feel like. Also, my back hurts from just sitting so much. So I've been doing like physical therapy stuff to kind of hopefully help that. I'm sure a lot of other musicians and producers can relate. But yeah, I would say time is the biggest thing.
How do I handle financial ups and downs, and what advice would I give to others who are aspiring to have a similar career? That's kind of more advice that I'm not really qualified to give because I don't even take my own advice when it comes to financial stuff like that. But there's definitely ups and downs when you do this kind of stuff. And so the best way to just prepare for that is to be prepared for it. Like typically when people start a business or pursue something like this, they have some savings. They don't just go into it with no dollars in the bank account, no nothing, and just expect to go. It's like, how the fuck are you gonna pay rent? How are you gonna buy food? How are you gonna feed your cat? Shit like that. So definitely having a plan when you want to pursue music full time is a big thing. Like, listen to my story and take inspiration from it, but definitely don't do what I did. I didn't do things the right way, and I did suffer a lot because of it, but you don't have to. So definitely have some savings. They say to have at least 6 months saved up. That's a good amount because, even when you get to the point where you're making full-time income, it's always gonna be fluctuating. There's always the ups and there's always the downs. And when you're in the ups, it's great. You're making bank as a full-time producer, you're killing it, you feel great, you're on top of the world, like everything's sick, but it always comes down. And that's just life and business in general. So you have to be prepared for that.
Thank you for watching part 2 of this series. Part 3 will be up at the exact same time next week. And in part 3, we will be answering how these 5 musicians took their hobby and turned it into a full-time career that works for them. Make sure you subscribe down below and turn on the bell notification so you can keep up to date with when that video comes out.